So, AI is getting more and more autonomous, right? And that's bringing us face to face with one of the absolute biggest challenges in tech today. I mean, how on earth do you teach a machine to make a moral choice?
And look, this isn't just some philosophy class thought experiment anymore. Not at all. We have AI systems out there making decisions with real world, sometimes life or death consequences. So this question, it's incredibly urgent. Today, we're going to dig into two really different ways researchers are trying to tackle this. One is all about strategic rules, kind of like a game. The other, it's all about learning from human experience.
Yeah, and don't get it twisted. This problem is already here. It's not some far off future thing. I'm talking about self driving cars that could, in a split second, have to choose the lesser of two evils in a crash. And it's happening right now in systems using AI to decide who gets a life saving kidney. I mean, these are incredibly high stakes moral choices, and we're handing them over to machines.
Okay, so to really get a feel for how tricky this is, let's look at a classic dilemma. You've got two choices here. You can do nothing, and you basically allow something terrible to happen. Or you can intervene, pull a lever. But in doing so, you actively cause harm to someone else. See the difference? For most of us, there's a huge moral gap between allowing harm and causing it. And that little nuance, that's what's so incredibly hard to code into a machine. Now, you might be thinking, hey, isn't there a simple fix for this? Just tell the AI to do the greatest good for the greatest number of people, right? That whole framework is called utilitarianism. And on the surface, it seems super logical. But what happens when that simple math leads to answers that, frankly, most of us would find completely horrifying? So yeah, the whole idea behind utilitarianism is just to maximize the overall good. For an AI, this sounds perfect, right? It's just a calculation. Which action creates the most utility or happiness? And that's why it's a super common approach in AI research. But it has a really big fundamental flaw.
Just look at this example. A purely utilitarian AI, just running the numbers, might figure out that sacrificing one healthy person to save five others is a net positive. It's a win. But we all have this gut feeling, this intuitive sense that that is just deeply wrong. It tramples on individual rights, it ignores intent, and it shatters our trust in people like doctors. So yeah, clearly we need something way more sophisticated than that.
Okay, so here's one really promising idea. What if we reframe the whole problem using game theory? Instead of thinking about it as a simple math problem, this approach models moral dilemmas as a kind of strategic game. With players, rules, actions, and of course, consequences. A perfect example of this is something called the trust game. Imagine this with me. Player 1 gets $100. They can decide to send any amount of it to player 2. Now here's the kicker. Whatever they send gets tripled. Then player 2 gets to decide if they're going to send any of that now tripled money back. It's such a cool test of trust and, well, fairness. So if you look at this through the lens of purely rational, selfish game theory, it predicts a very specific and kind of sad outcome. It assumes player 2 is just going to be selfish and keep all the money. And because player 1 knows this, a rational player 1 wouldn't send a single dollar. But here's the thing, that's not what people actually do. We trust each other, we return the favor. It really suggests there's a lot more going on here than just pure self-interest.
And this is the key insight. Our moral compass doesn't just point to the future, to what we can get out of a situation. We also look backward. We ask ourselves, was that fair? Was that a betrayal? To try and capture this, researchers are building what they call new moral solution concepts. These are basically new rules for the game that factor in things like fairness and gratitude, not just who ends up with the most money.
All right, so the second big approach? It's totally different. Instead of trying to write the rules of morality from the top down, like with game theory, this one uses machine learning. The idea is to have the AI learn what morality is from the bottom up, basically by chewing on a gigantic dataset of human moral judgments. And the process is just wild. First, you gather thousands of moral dilemmas. Then you get tons of people to tell you what they think the right thing to do is in each case. The system then dives into all that data, trying to spot the key features that seem to guide our moral choices. And finally, you train an AI to make its own decisions by recognizing those same patterns. So what kind of features are we talking about here? Well, they're pulled straight from moral psychology, and they're things we all instinctively get. Concepts like harm versus care, fairness, loyalty, authority, even purity. These become like the fundamental building blocks for how the AI learns to understand morality.
Okay, but there's a huge critical catch with this whole machine learning thing. The AI can't just be a black box that spits out an answer. I mean, if we're going to trust a machine with moral decisions, we absolutely have to be able to ask it, hey, why did you make that choice? The model has to be explainable. And believe me, that is a massive area of research right now.
So what we've got are these two really powerful and actually complementary paths. You've got game theory, which is great for modeling the formal structure of moral choices, the rules, the fairness. And then you've got machine learning, which helps us get a handle on the messy, complex patterns of how humans actually make these judgments. The real magic? It probably lies in finding a way to combine the two.
And all of this leads to a really fascinating and maybe a little bit unnerving question. If we combine these approaches, could we actually build an AI that makes better, more consistent moral decisions than the very humans who trained it?
The thinking goes like this. Any single one of us, right? We have our own biases, our own blind spots, we make moral mistakes. But an AI that's trained on the collective judgments of millions of people, it could potentially wash out or average out all those individual screw-ups. It might just be able to uncover moral principles that are way more consistent and less biased than any single person could be on their own.
But this brings us right back to the ultimate challenge, doesn't it? If we're really going to build an AI that reflects our collective morality, we first have to answer a question that we humans have been wrestling with for, well, forever. Whose values are the right ones to teach it? And that, right there, is a question that no amount of code or data can answer for us.